Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, what happened to dropping internal trade barriers in Canada? And are we losing jobs to AI already? Plus, what it really costs to live in this country. It's well above the minimum wage. That's all ahead. First, for the week that was in business, it's time for the briefs. The latest targets for the Major Projects Office have been announced. The list of new projects includes some familiar ones, including mines, LNG in BC, and a hydro project in the north. The recent budget allocated $213 million in spending for the office over the next 5 years. It also proposed to make it a standalone entity rather than a department of the government. Canadian artificial intelligence firm Clio is now valued at $5 billion US based on its latest round of funding. The provider of legal AI technology also completed its acquisition of VLEX for $1 billion US. Clio's new capital includes equity from Goldman Sachs and a debt facility led by Blackstone. Visa and MasterCard have reached a settlement in the U.S. with merchants who accused them of overcharging for the use of the cards. Under the agreement, the card companies would agree to slightly lower fees, but also allow merchants to reject cards that carry a higher transaction cost. Thousands of flights were canceled across the U.S. this week as the Federal Aviation Administration limited capacity for safety reasons at 40 airports. The record-long government shutdown in the U.S. meant air traffic controllers were not being paid. An agreement to reopen the U.S. government this week may still take days or weeks to implement. The International Energy Agency said this week that global oil consumption is expected to keep growing until 2050, but that the rapid rise of renewable energy will also mean a transition is inevitable. Supply of renewables will grow faster than any other energy source over the next decade, according to the IEA. Loblaws reported a solid quarter this week with sales up 4.6% as traffic grew and shoppers spent more per visit. Loblaws discount brands outperformed its full-price grocery stores as shoppers continued to hunt for bargains. And those are your business briefs. Internal trade barriers were supposed to come down between provinces as part of our Team Canada efforts, but when it comes to booze, at least, plenty of barriers remain. Dan Kelly is President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Dan, great to see you.
Good to be with you.
So you guys have actually done a study on this. This is not new, but obviously what's not happening is that these existing barriers, and alcohol is one place where they've been really high, are still in place. What do you make of this?
Look, there's been a lot of hustle on the internal trade barrier file, more than I've seen in the 31 years I've been working in public policy. But still, we have such a long way to go. And I'm not sure that governments are moving beyond platitudes and commitments into action. And that's what's really needed here. We've had governments in 2017, there was an agreement to move on alcohol rules across Canada. And only now are we starting to see some fruits of that labor with some direct consumer plans in the years ahead.
So when obviously it feels as though there's never been a better moment to break down some of these barriers, do they take time? Even once the will is there, could it be in process, but it takes months and months to actually remove regulations that are sitting there?
That's just it. I think the political will is there, but they've been fumbling around in actually getting it into practice. And that's because there's, of course, a patchwork quilt of agencies involved. The challenge, of course, is especially true for liquor. We have about 10 different problems that we have to solve here. Some provinces have their own testing requirements where all alcohol products have to be tested by that province. Some have different labeling requirements, so you have to slap on different labels depending on where it's going. And then, of course, you actually, in most cases, have to sell your products as a small producer of wine, beer, or spirits to the liquor authority, the provincial liquor authority, who then distributes it to consumers or to retail. And so we have all of those agencies that have to turn their keys. And that's why this has been a real challenge to make serious progress, despite political commitments on the part of many governments.
And, you know, we have heard talk at the federal level about trying to facilitate and get rid of any of the interprovincial trade barriers that belong to them. Is this a good example of where most of them actually are at the provincial and even the municipal level, but that at the provincial level is where most of these barriers live? It doesn't really matter what the federal government says if the provinces don't get on board. And I'm guessing, Dan, if they don't all get on board, it's really easy for a province to say, well, then I'm not going to send my liquor, let your liquor come in here. I mean, it does have to be kind of a shared thing.
That's just it. In fact, to be fair to the feds, they have moved. They did have some rules that restricted interprovincial trade that they have since scrapped. So the feds actually have done, I think, their part of this, and it's now the provinces that unfortunately still have many of these policies in shape. But some of them are pretty big hurdles. One of the reasons why this has been so slow is that provinces derive a huge revenue stream from the sale, like being the intermediary between the producer and the consumer,
Right.
and they're loath to give that up. So ultimately, the model that I think has been agreed to is that we're going to allow private producers to sell directly to consumers, regardless of where they are in Canada. But to do that, the producers have to go through a labyrinth of process steps to try to make that happen and still ensure that the province gets its cut along the way. It's far simpler with sales taxes. We've largely figured that out, that if you're selling things between provinces, the local sales tax rate is applied. But there's so many more intermediaries in this process and all sorts of additional regulations that makes it much, much harder.
Dan, so good to have you with us. Appreciate your time today.
Anytime at all.
Dan Kelly is President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Up next, when it comes to your job, is the future friendly? Stay with us.